Have you ever posted a picture online only to find yourself checking for likes over and over, hoping for validation? Or maybe you scrolled through someone else's profile and thought, why isn't my life that perfect? Social media is everywhere, shaping how we see ourselves and others, but how much of it is actually healthy? In today's episode, we're uncovering the psychology behind social media, why it makes you feel the way it does, how it impacts your self-esteem and identity, and most importantly, how you can take back control. If you've ever wondered why you're drawn to the screen or how to make it work for you instead of against you, this is the conversation you've been waiting for. Let's explore this together right after this. Welcome to the Psychology of Us, where we explore the fascinating ways our minds shape our lives, relationships, and the world around us. I'm Professor R.J. Starr, your guide on this journey into the heart of human behavior. Whether you're a psychology student, enthusiast, or simply someone curious about why we think, feel, and act the way we do, this podcast is for you. Each episode will dive into topics that touch our everyday lives, unpacking theories, exploring intriguing questions, and offering insights that help us better understand ourselves and one another. Throughout our time together, I'll also invite your thoughts, questions, and topic suggestions. You can email me at profrjstar, and that's star with 2 R's, at outlook.com. profrjstar@outlook.com. Your feedback will shape future episodes and help ensure this podcast feels like a conversation between us. So, let's begin this journey together. Get comfortable, stay curious, and let's discover the psychology of us. I'm Professor R.J. Starr, and I want to start by apologizing if I sound a bit froggy. I've been feeling a bit under the weather, and I'm in the last days of a cold. I have some tea here with ginger, turmeric, honey, and lemons, so let's see if I can get through this. I'll also give you a heads up that it's a stormy day today outside, and my parrot is feeling a bit freaked out with the thunder. So he's sitting on my shoulder. You may hear some parrot chirps and squawks, but I'll do my best to filter them out. So, while I wrote this episode with preteens, teens, and young adults in mind, especially those between the ages of 12 and 35, the truth is this conversation applies to everyone. No matter your age, if you've ever felt the highs and lows of scrolling or posting, this episode is for you. Stick around. There's a lot to unpack. Let's get started. Imagine this. You've just posted a photo online. Maybe it's from a weekend with friends, a sunset you captured, or something you're proud of. Within minutes, the notifications start rolling in. Likes, comments, shares. It's a dopamine rush. You tell yourself it doesn't matter, but deep down, every reaction feels like a validation, or sometimes a rejection. Sound familiar? If it does, you're not alone. Social media has woven itself into the fabric of daily life, especially for your generation. It's how you connect, share, learn, and even build your identity. But what happens when the connections you seek or the image you project online starts to impact how you feel about yourself? Why does one bad photo or a lack of engagement on a post sometimes feel like a personal failure? Why does scrolling through someone else's, quote, perfect, end quote, life make your own seem smaller? In this episode, we're going to dive into the psychology of social media, why it affects you the way it does, and what you can do about it. I'll share stories of people just like you, break down some fascinating psychological theories, and most importantly, help you understand how to use social media in a way that strengthens rather than diminishes your self-esteem and sense of identity. This isn't about villainizing social media. It's an incredible tool when used wisely. But like any tool, it has its risks, especially if we're not aware of how it shapes us. My goal today is to give you that awareness and empower you to make choices that align with who you are, not just how you want to be seen, but because who you are is worth so much more than likes or followers. Let's explore this together. Part 1, the double-edged sword of social media. Social media is an incredible invention. It has connected us in ways that were unimaginable just a few decades ago. With a simple post, you can share your art, your achievements, or even your struggles with friends, family, and strangers across the world. It's a platform for creativity, self-expression, and connection. And most of you don't know a world without it. But as most things in life, it's a double-edged sword. The very tool that can bring joy and connection can also become a source of comparison, insecurity, and stress. Take the story of Maya, one of my students who uses Instagram to share her photography. Of course, I'm changing the names to protect privacy. At first, Maya posted for fun, enjoying the process of capturing moments and seeing her skills improve. Her followers grew, and with each new comment praising her work, she felt a sense of pride and validation. But over time, Maya found herself obsessing over the numbers, how many likes, how many new followers, how her posts compared to those of other photographers. When one of her posts didn't perform as well as she expected, she felt crushed. Was her work not good enough? Did people not care anymore? What started as a creative outlet turned into a source of self-doubt. But Maya's experience is not unique. Social media amplifies what psychologists call social comparison, a concept rooted in what we call social comparison theory, developed by Leon Festinger in the 1950s. This theory explains how we evaluate ourselves based on comparisons with others. There are two main types of comparisons, upward and downward. Upward comparisons happen when we compare ourselves to people we perceive as better in some way, more attractive, more successful, more popular. These comparisons often leave us feeling inadequate, as if we'll never measure up. On social media, where people present the highlight reels of their lives, upward comparisons are almost unavoidable. Every glamorous vacation photo or perfectly curated lifestyle post can make you question your own life, even though you know deep down that what you're seeing is not the full picture. Now, downward comparisons, on the other hand, happen when we compare ourselves to those people that we perceive as being worse off. These can boost our self-esteem temporarily, but they often come at the expense of empathy or connection. They can also create a cycle of needing to feel better than in order to maintain a fragile sense of self-worth. The thing about social media is that it's designed to keep you comparing. The algorithms push content that engages you emotionally, whether that's awe, envy, or even anger and frustration. The more you compare, the more you scroll, and the cycle continues. But it's not all bad. Let's not forget the positive side of social media, the moments when it fosters genuine connection and joy. Like Sam, a young artist who started posting his illustrations on TikTok. Sam's work resonated with others, and he found a supportive community that encouraged his creativity. For Sam, social media became a source of inspiration and belonging. The key difference between Maya and Sam's experience lies in how they engage with social media. Maya got caught in the comparison trap, while Sam focused on connection and growth. Social media itself wasn't inherently good or bad. It's about how they used it and what they allowed it to mean in their lives. As we move forward, I want you to think about how social media makes you feel. When you scroll through your feed, are you inspired, connected, and uplifted? Or do you find yourself comparing, doubting, and questioning your worth? Awareness is the first step toward reclaiming your relationship with social media. So let's keep digging deeper. Let's talk about what happens to your self-esteem when you engage with social media. Whether it's scrolling or posting or waiting for that little dopamine hit from a notification, social media can have a profound impact on how you feel about yourself. Sometimes it lifts you up. Other times, it leaves you questioning your worth. Why does this happen? To understand, we need to dig into the psychology behind it. Imagine this scenario. Jake is a freshman at university. He posts a picture from a campus event, something he's excited to share. As the hours pass, the likes trickle in, but not as many as he hoped. Meanwhile, his roommate posts a similar photo and racks up double the engagement. Jake can't help but feel like there's something wrong with him. His post wasn't good enough. This single moment might seem trivial, but over time, experiences like these can chip away at your self-esteem. To understand this, let's turn to what we call self-discrepancy theory. This is a concept developed by psychologist Edward Higgins. The theory suggests that our self-esteem is influenced by the gap between three versions of ourselves. The first gap is the actual self, who we believe we are. The second, the ideal self, who we want to be based on our aspirations. And the third is the ought self, who we think we should be, who we ought to be based on society or external expectations. On social media, the ideal self often takes center stage. The pictures we post, the captions we write, and the way we curate our profiles are carefully crafted to showcase the best version of ourselves, or at least the version we want others to see. While there's nothing inherently wrong with wanting to present ourselves in the most positive light, this process can create a disconnect between the actual self and the ideal self. When Jake posted his photo, his actual self was on display, but the engagement, or lack thereof, made him feel like his actual self wasn't good enough to meet the expectations of his ideal self. The gap between these selves is what triggered his feelings of inadequacy. Social media amplifies this dynamic because it allows us to compare not just our real lives, but our curated ideal selves to the curated ideal selves of others. Now, there's also a chemical component to this, because every time you get a like or comment or share or some other positive feedback, your brain releases dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward. This dopamine creates a positive feedback loop. You post, you get likes. You feel good, so you post again. The problem is that this can lead to a dependence on external validation. Instead of feeling good about yourself because of your own accomplishments or qualities, your self-esteem now becomes tied to how others react to your online persona. Let's meet Alyssa, a high school senior. Alyssa spends hours perfecting her selfies, editing them to look flawless. And she does. When she posts, she gets hundreds of likes and comments, which temporarily boosts her confidence. But when she looks in the mirror, she doesn't see the edited version of herself, and it leaves her feeling insecure. Over time, she begins to associate her worth with her ability to present a version of herself that isn't entirely real. So this brings us to a critical question. How much of your self-worth is tied to your online presence? When we rely too heavily on social media for validation, we risk losing sight of the intrinsic value we hold simply for being who we are. The good news is that this cycle can be broken. One powerful way to start is by challenging the narratives you tell yourself about what social media engagement means. And when I say the narratives you tell yourself, that's a topic I'm going to dive into in another episode in the future here. It's the inner narratives, the stories that we tell ourselves and about others that create that cognitive distortion, that inability to see others as they are, but only in the image that we created in it. So back to the question. Does a post with fewer likes mean you're less interesting, less attractive, or less worthy? Or does it simply mean that the algorithm didn't favor you that day, or that people were busy and didn't see your post? Reframing your perspective can help you detach your self-esteem from metrics that, in reality, have little to do with your true value. As we continue, we'll explore how social media shapes not just your self-esteem, but also your identity, who you believe yourself to be, both online and offline. The more you understand these dynamics, the more power you have to make choices that align with your authentic self. Let's dive into that next. Part 3, identity formation in the digital age. Let's shift our focus to identity, who you are, or maybe more importantly, who you think you are. In your late teens and early 20s, identity formation is a central part of life. You're figuring out your values, your passions, and how you fit into the world. Social media plays a massive role in this process today, both helping and complicating your journey. Erickson was a renowned developmental psychologist. Erickson described identity formation as a key challenge during what he called the stage of identity versus role confusion. During this period, young adults grapple with questions like, who am I and who do I want to be? Sometimes these questions carry well into later adulthood. Social media offers us a unique platform for exploring these questions. It allows you to experiment with how you present yourself, connect with like-minded people, discover new ideas. But it can also lead to confusion and even identity crises when the lines between your online persona and your true self become blurred. Take Emma, For example, Emma is a college sophomore. She's deeply passionate about environmental activism. She starts a TikTok account to share educational content about sustainability and quickly gains a large following. On one hand, this aligns perfectly with her values and gives her a sense of purpose. On the other hand, as Emma's account grows, she feels pressure to produce content constantly, even when she's exhausted or unsure about what to post. Does this sound familiar to you? Over time, Emma starts to feel like her identity as the sustainability girl is taking over other parts of her personality. She wonders if people would still like her if she stopped posting or shared something different. This struggle reflects a key risk of identity formation in the digital age, tying your sense of self to your online persona. Social media often encourage you to reduce yourself to a brand or a specific niche. While this can be empowering in some ways, it can also feel limiting. The more you invest in a curated online identity, the harder it can be to separate who you truly are from who you appear to be online. We all have experience with this, including me. You are not alone. Another challenge comes from the sheer volume of information and opinions you're exposed to on social media. You are constantly bombarded with ideas about who you should be, whether it's the fitness influencer telling you need to work out at 5 a.m. or the entrepreneur pushing the next hustle culture mentality onto you. With so many voices competing for your attention, it can be very hard to hear your own. Which brings us back to Erickson's theory, the role confusion. The role confusion he described often happens when external influences overshadow internal exploration. If your sense of self is constantly shaped by trends, likes, and followers, you risk losing touch with what truly matters to you. But social media does not have to be a trap. It can also be a powerful tool for self-discovery. Consider Jordan, a student who uses Instagram to document his journey of learning guitar. He connects with a supportive community of fellow musicians, finds inspiration in others' progress, and uses the platform as a way to hold himself accountable. For Jordan, social media becomes a space for growth and self-expression, rather than a source of pressure. Now, you see, the difference between Emma's and Jordan's experiences lies in the relationship with their online identities. Emma's persona began to overshadow her real self, while Jordan used social media as a tool to explore and express his true interests. The key takeaway here is that your online identity should reflect your authentic self, not define it. So how can we strike this balance? How can you get into balance with this? Start by asking yourself some reflective questions. Write them down. You'll hear me talk about journaling throughout this podcast, but write them down. Journal your questions and your answers. So here are some reflective questions. Are you using social media to express who you truly are or to meet others' expectations? Do your online interactions make you feel more connected to yourself or more disconnected? Here's a big one. If you took a break from social media, would you feel lost or would you feel relieved? As you think about these questions, remember that identity is fluid. Who you are today may not be who you are tomorrow, and that's okay. Social media is just one piece of the puzzle, a tool that can either help you build a stronger sense of self or pull you further away from it. The choice is in how you engage with it. Let's explore some practical strategies for navigating this digital landscape in the next part. Part 4, strategies for healthy social media use. Now that we've explored how social media impacts your self-esteem and identity, let's talk about how you can take back control. Social media doesn't have to define you, and it doesn't have to harm your mental health. With a few intentional strategies, you can make it work for you rather than against you. Number 1, curate your feed. Start by taking an honest look at your social media feed. Ask yourself, does this content inspire me, educate me, or make me feel good about myself? If not, it might be time for a cleanse. Unfollow accounts that make you feel inadequate or stressed. It's not personal. It's about creating a healthier digital environment for you. Take Alyssa, for instance. She used to follow dozens of influencers who posted perfect vacation photos and extravagant lifestyles. Every time she scrolled, she felt like her own life didn't measure up. One day, she decided to unfollow those accounts and replace them with ones that showcased more authentic, relatable content. The difference was immediate. Her feed became a place of encouragement, not comparison. Number 2, set boundaries. Social media is designed to keep you scrolling, but that doesn't mean you have to let it. Set clear boundaries for your usage. This could mean limiting your screen time to a specific number of minutes or hours per day. Taking social media free days to recharge and reconnect with the offline world. Turning off notifications to reduce the constant pull to check your phone. A helpful tip is to schedule social media breaks during your day. For example, use it as a reward after completing a study session, or a workout, or attending class, or working on a project at work, rather than mindlessly scrolling whenever you're bored. Number 3, focus on connection over validation. One of the biggest traps of social media is seeking validation through likes, comments, and shares. This means absolutely nothing to you. Instead, shift your focus to building genuine connections. Engage with people who share your interests, start meaningful conversations, and use the platform to deepen relationships rather than chasing approval. Consider Jordan, the aspiring guitarist we talked about earlier. By connecting with fellow musicians, Jordan found a supportive community that helped him grow and feel seen, not because of his follower count, but because of shared passion and encouragement. Remember, real connections matter more than virtual applause. Number 4, be mindful of what you post. Ask yourself why you're posting something before you hit share. Find your why. Is it because you're excited to share a moment or idea? Is it because you're hoping for validation? Is it because you're proud of what you are sharing? Or is it because you want someone to notice you? If it's hoping for validation or hoping to be noticed, take a step back. Try journaling about your feelings or talking to a friend instead. Posting should feel empowering, not stressful. It should feel like you are sharing and not waiting for a response. Number 5, practice digital detox. Every once in a while, give yourself permission to step away from social media entirely. Use this time to focus on offline activities that bring you joy. Reading, spending time with loved ones, exploring nature, pursuing a hobby, shopping. You'll be surprised how refreshing it feels to disconnect. A case study from a recent experiment highlights this point. College students who took a week-long break from social media reported improved mood, better focus, and a greater sense of self. The time away gave them a chance to reflect on what truly mattered and break the cycle of constant comparison. Number 6, remember your why. I touched on this a few minutes ago. Social media is a tool, not a measure of your worth. Always come back to your why. Why are you using these platforms? What do you hope to gain from them? Why are you posting that particular post? Keeping your intentions in mind can help you use social media in a way that aligns with your values and supports your goals. And last, think of social media as a mirror. It reflects what you choose to focus on. When you fill it with positivity, authenticity, and meaningful connections, it can be a powerful ally in your journey of self-discovery. But when it becomes a source of stress or comparison, it's okay to step back and reassess. You're the one holding the mirror. You get to decide what it reflects. With a little mindfulness and intention, you can make social media a place where your self-esteem and identity thrive, not just survive. So go ahead, take that first step toward reclaiming your digital space. It's your feed, your rules, and most importantly, your life. As we wrap up, let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've explored today. Social media is an extraordinary tool, one that has reshaped how we connect, share, and even see ourselves. But as with any tool, its impact depends on how you use it. It can uplift you, inspire you, and help you express your authentic self. Or it can leave you feeling trapped in cycles of comparison, self-doubt, and pressure. We've discussed how social media affects your self-esteem, from the dopamine-driven rush of likes to the challenges of self-discrepancy. We've looked at how it shapes your identity, sometimes helping you grow, but other times limiting you to a curated persona. And most importantly, we've talked about strategies to take control, curating your feed, setting boundaries, focusing on connection over validation, and remembering your why. Here's the most important takeaway. You are not defined by your follower count, your likes, or your carefully crafted posts. You are a complex, multi-dimensional person, and no digital profile could ever capture the full beauty of who you are. Social media can be a part of your life, but it doesn't have to control it. The real you is far too valuable for that. So as you log off today, ask yourself, how does social media fit into the bigger picture of who I want to be? What role do I want to play in my journey? And how can I use it in a way that supports my growth rather than detracting from it? A lot to consider there. Thank you for spending time with me today on The Psychology of Us with Professor R.J. Starr. I hope this episode helped you better understand the impact of social media on your self-esteem and identity, and gave you some tools to make it a healthier, more positive part of your life. Remember, social media is just one part of your story. You get to decide how it fits into the bigger picture. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to follow, subscribe, and share the podcast with your friends. Your support helps us grow and reach more people who can benefit from these conversations. And if you have any questions, feedback, or ideas for future episodes, I would love to hear from you. You can email me at profrjstar@outlook.com. That is profrjstar, star with 2 R's, at outlook.com. profrjstar@outlook.com. Let's keep this dialogue going. Until then, be kind to yourself, stay authentic, and remember, you are so much more than what's on your feed. Thanks for listening to The Psychology of Us with Professor R.J. Starr. Take care, and I'll see you next time.